This video and all other videos on this channel for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy, Camel. And today, I've got a lot of cool things to show you. A lot of cool things. We're going to be moving quite fast. We are ultimately going to be ending on Bitcoin potentially being used to replace the bond market. This has been a wacky speculation of mine, and I know Chemo has a similar idea as well. For a long time, it kind of seemed like just maybe we were a bit too crazy about this, but the longer I'm in this space, the more I'm convinced that is the ultimate game plan for this asset class. So I'm going to show you that because I stumbled into something on Twitter this morning that kind of makes me think I'm right about this hunch. And then, of course, we got to look at some charts, find some short-term trading opportunities. Based on my experience, based on the look of the charts at the moment, I still think we're going to get that pullback into that early May timeframe in line with FOMC. And then I think you're going to see me practically get max long everything. So I want to share that with you as well. I've been very consistent in that setup and I still stand by that setup. I'll show you why I'm even more confident now. And in the meantime, we're going to go through a bunch of stuff that, frankly, is looking pretty awesome to me. The first thing in this wild episode is on this chart that I posted all the way back in January 2023. It was a speculation of mine that we may see Congress being banned from owning stocks. We have a long history of tracking this, a long history of pointing at it and saying, don't get too excited, because they always say they're going to do it and nothing ever comes of it. But of late, it does seem to be gaining a little bit more momentum. And I even found this in Congress to stop them insider trading. Okay, and look at this. They have named it Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments, the Pelosi Act. So that is the first thing I wanted to show you, pretty wild. The next thing is, Saylor has got a relentless bid, continues to buy more and more Bitcoin, but it's not just Saylor now because we're seeing more and more companies hop on this bandwagon. We've also had this $3.5 billion coal mining company just put $42 million into Bitcoin on their treasury. So more and more and more of this is happening under the hood. And the next part of this wild episode is across Europe, Spain, Portugal, France, Belgium, they had widespread power outages going on, with places like Spain even losing access to water, internet, mobile phone services. And again, long-time followers of this channel know that this is actually expected. Now, a lot of people were asking me, is this the start of the end? Is this the start of the... No, it's not. I still maintain this is just test runs. They're not ready for this yet. And for anyone that doesn't know the theory is they are going to orchestrate a global cyber attack and use that to usher in the CBDCs. But first, I think we've got to continue on the path that we're on for the markets. I don't actually think this is going to occur until 2026. I've been quite consistent in saying that, but I do expect more and more of these kind of test runs to occur. So for a lot of people, this is way too tinfoil hat, and I understand. I'm by no means suggesting you believe me, but we've had a pretty good track record at predicting these kind of things. And again, I'm here to tell you that expect a few more of these. And the big enchilada, okay, the big one on the global scale, I believe comes in 2026. And again, the reason is I think they're going to use this to usher in the CBDCs. Now, fitting in with this theme, we also have MasterCard talking about supporting stablecoin payments, meaning you're soon going to be able to spend your stablecoins using this card. Now, I believe this is akin to boiling the frogs slowly. If you put a frog in boiling water straight away, it will hop out because it can detect the temperature change. If, however, you put it in cold water and gradually turn the heating up, what you will find is you can slowly but surely boil that frog to death because it doesn't notice the subtle changes. I believe this is what we are going to see. I believe this is the boiling the frogs, and I believe that whilst everyone is pretty steadfast out there and saying things like there won't be a CBDC and so president has promised there won't be one, I think the Trojan horse here is the USDC stablecoin. I think Circle is planned to be the CBDC, and I think that we are slowly but surely boiling the frogs alive. We've convinced a bunch of people that we're never going to have a true CBDC and all of that stuff's not coming, but here we go, okay? Under the hood, they're slowly but surely working on it. I also believe this is the reason that the DT Foundation has been buying shed loads of Ethereum despite the price just dying non-stop. I think that's because they need a certain amount of Ethereum to do some jiggery pokery with the USDC stablecoin, which of course is built on top of the Ethereum network. And so we often save this kind of crack pipe Monday talk for a Monday, but today you're getting it on Tuesday instead. Wild times. Over in the world of Bitcoin, things start to get incredibly exciting for me. Bob Lucas is confirming that he sees what I see, and that we likely have a week 31 weekly cycle low at the half daily cycle low inversion point, and we have now confirmed this with a weekly swing, a close above the 10 MA, and as I've shown before, we've also got a Brexit cross and a trend line break. So happy days. Notice that Bob is saying that on average cycles rise for 15 weeks to the upside, and here we sit on just week 4. So plenty of time to see this thing escape to new all-time highs. He also notes that if this really is a confirmed weekly cycle, then at this stage in the major 4-year cycle, we have no business trading below here. Trade below here, and the bears and the top callers are correct. That was the top, and there will not be any new all-time highs. This, of course, fits with my idea, which is that we're going to get this weekly cycle low and double. I know I keep harping on about this, but it's really, really, really important. A lot of people were very, very quick to invalidate this setup prematurely, but when we go to an updated chart, full disclosure, yes, I have grabbed this yellow squiggle and shifted it to the right-hand side a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, the thing is in play, okay? It just took ever so slightly longer. It took 30 days, a half daily cycle extra to find that weekly cycle, and now it seems to be confirmed. Now we seem to be well on our way, and thus, I think on a balance of probabilities, we have a shot here at making new highs. So this is pretty wild as well. This is occurring at a time where Bitcoin currently is a mere 12.9% away from its all-time high, a mere 13-ish% beneath the prior all-time high for Bitcoin. The setup here is glorious to see this thing rip to new highs and to see everybody FOMO back in as they come to realize that they were premature in calling the top and invalidations on these setups. And whether you believe it or not, okay, the reality is, the absolute truth of the matter, is that the whales think I'm correct, because the whales continue to accumulate massive amounts of Bitcoin here. They do not care for any of these narratives, any of these top callers, any of that at all, okay? The bull market is still very strong. They have yet to start distributing their coins, likely because they have a good idea that the price is going higher in the not too distant future. And even more wild than all of this, Arizona has just passed both a strategic Bitcoin reserve and the digital asset strategic reserve. And this has gone all the way to the governor's signature. It's the final signature on the paperwork, and then this thing will officially have been established in Arizona. And this leads me on to the most wild part of all, which is the speculation that the plan here is to issue bonds against Bitcoin, for Bitcoin to fix the debt problem, for Bitcoin to fix the bond market. Sounds crazy, but just hear me out. So the USA is going to buy Bitcoin, but not in the way that you think. Imagine treasury bonds backed by Bitcoin. Institutions and nations can get exposed to Bitcoin with lower risk, but greater potential upside. At the moment, the primary way the government makes money is to issue debt instruments, bonds, treasuries, that kind of thing. Investors, institutions, nation states, et al. Buy this debt by buying a bond. They give and loan their money to the US government, and the government promises to pay back a yield. But what if, instead of just an IOU and a promise, what if these bonds were backed by Bitcoin? Then they could collect debt, raise money as per usual, but investors would have access and exposure to Bitcoin with far greater upside potential than the current 4-ish% that they get on a 10-year treasury. Needless to say, this would put a near infinite bid under Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin would have to be tens, if not hundreds of millions of coins to sustain this kind of buying pressure. And I've got a 45-second video I want to play you here.
America's national debt is exploding past $36 trillion. And now, a bold new idea is catching attention inside of Washington. One that links treasury bonds with Bitcoin. It's called Bit Bonds. They look like regular US government bonds, but under the hood, they're built to stack Bitcoin automatically. No crypto wallets, no exchanges, just a government-backed bond with Bitcoin built in.
So there you have it. Like I said, the longer I am in this space, the more I am convinced that this is ultimately the game plan for Bitcoin. The more I become more and more convinced that we are going to see something like this in the 2030s and beyond. Absolutely wild times to be alive. And speaking of the bond market, I think we're about to resume the tell that to the bond market squiggle. If you don't know what that is, I'll explain that in a moment. But US Treasuries have just seen their biggest 4-week inflow since March of 2023. Take a look at this. Huge spike. Okay, absolutely huge spike. Why is this important? Because we know that my yellow squiggle, which is the tell that to the bond market squiggle, meaning it doesn't matter what anyone thinks of rates, it doesn't matter whether or not the Fed thinks it's going to cut or not. What matters is the bond market. The reason we say tell that to the bond market is because it is the 10-year yield that decides, the bond market in aggregate that decides where the federal funds rate should be. Now, during the most recent period of volatility, we did get a deviation, a fake out, and it looks like it's now rolling over. But if these inflows continue, what we will see is the resumption of this tell that to the bond market squiggle, the resumption of downside, and rate cuts will be starting to be put back on the table. So I maintain that this is likely a capitulation event. This spike in the yields is a capitulation event in the bonds. And now that that capitulation is over, we're going to see the resumption of buying, which is of course what we're getting confirmed right here. And of course, the resumption of buying will resume the tell that to the bond market squiggle to the downside. So happy days there. Of course, this in the bond yields not only puts rate cuts on the table, not only increases liquidity and eases monetary policy, but it also allows for more risk on activity and for risk assets to soar higher. So super, super, super wild times. The only question left is how can we capitalize on this move? How can we therefore look at the whole situation and position ourselves so that we can take some money from the market? And I maintain that we are still going to be heading down into some kind of swing low around the early May timeframe in line with that FOMC date. Whilst we have a breakout, it looks pretty tentative, and I actually think we're going to get something like this, and then we're going to be able to go out of that cycle low. Somewhere in here, I think we can get long and look for resumption of upside. So that's how I'm going to be dealing with the stock market. Again, if you've been following the work, then this should be no surprise to you at all. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe and follow along. You will see me hit these trades in real time. Level 3 members get notified of the exact levels of entry and stop loss in real time when it happens. Everyone else will be told the following day in the daily content. And of course, as always, we're going to keep calling these trades out ahead of time. I've told you what's going to happen. I've told you when we see some kind of pullback, you're going to see me get long, and we'll set a public stop loss so we can't possibly cheat it as always. Gold as well is heading down to that daily and weekly cycle low. You can probably tell by my tone of voice, okay? Things are starting to look extremely bullish here. Note that we haven't had the big puke. Of course, as I've been saying consistently, get the big puke and we can talk about longs to new highs. If we continue to chop sideways in here, I actually expect minor and silver outperformance whilst gold consolidates until the next weekly cycle, and then we can get resumption of the uptrend. And also notice what we can observe right here into this left translated daily cycle top for gold. I see every man and his dog out there trying to call a permanent top in the gold market. I don't think this looks anything like a permanent top. Permanent tops tend to crash spectacularly. We haven't seen it yet. I really don't think this is going to be a top that remains for any longer than about 6 months, and that's assuming we just mostly go sideways. If we do get a big flush, like I said, I would pretty much expect this thing to rip immediately back to new highs, and of course, we continue to be positioned for this in the level 3 members section. So happy days there. We've already locked in some profit, can't possibly lose. And of course, the last thing to talk about really is Bitcoin. Similar deal for Bitcoin, okay? If this thing is going to do what I think it's going to do, which is roll over into that cycle low early May and go, then again, you're going to see me having called this thing out for weeks and weeks and weeks, publicly get long, set a public stop loss and invalidation level, and target new all-time highs. If this thing is just going to stage a lockout rally, then the focus of the channel will be on two things. One, will be selling the top and unloading the entire spot position. And two, it will be, for me at least, guiding members into getting some crypto-related stocks to capture this exposure. We're already positioned via a couple of them, MicroStrategy, for example, so happy days there. And it will just be a case of continuing to take things one day at a time, seeing what the market will give. But for weeks and weeks and weeks now, I've been sick of my own voice telling you guys we've got to head down to some cycle lows and some tradable swings in early May, and then out of FOMC we can start to buy the dip and get long and really start to focus on nailing down some gains thereafter. And now finally we're only about a week away, so feels super good to be this close to some tradable setups. And then again, as always, we're going to set those public invalidations, hit these trades in front of everyone, and continue to do what only the Camel Crew can. So I hope you found value here today. I hope you have a good think about this whole bond market thing and Bitcoin, and I hope you'll subscribe, follow along, and see us hit these trades. In the meantime, if you want to learn how cycles work, there'll be a video link coming up in the outro music in just a second. And other than that, take care, all the best, cheers, bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see, rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame, sticking to his guns in his money game.